We've talked about the big questions facing the Bruins this offseason. What else did we learn from the Bruins during their end of season media availabilities?
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B. Today is Wednesday, May 22nd, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine. Free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. There's no I in team, but there is one in Indeed, and that's the hiring platform you need to build yours. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply, but if you need to hire, you need Indeed. And the Boston Bruins might be looking to hire some new personnel this coming offseason, mostly focusing on the ice. Not expecting any changes when it comes to coaching or management, although I guess we'll find out here today as Charlie Jacobs, Cam Neely, Don Sweeney, Jim Montgomery meet with the media. We'll break down what we learned from them on tomorrow's episode. But today we are going over some other notes that we missed from the players' end of season availability, which took place on Sunday. Before we get into all that, a quick reminder, you can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins, and you can find me, my hockey thoughts, dad jokes at Ian C. McLaren. Let's begin with the captain. It was Brad Marchand's first season wearing the C, and he said that it's going to be a lot easier coming into the upcoming season than it was this past year. There were a lot of unknowns, even who was going to be the captain after Patrice Bergeron retired, and how the team was going to look. But going into the summer and then going to next training camp, he said he's going to be a lot more comfortable, a lot more confident in the role, in the position, understanding what it's about, what comes with it. And it's going to be a lot easier to start next season, which says a lot because Marchand, by all accounts, was a fantastic leader for the Bruins and was well loved and respected as the captain. You saw how much it meant to the guys when he was out of the lineup for those games against the Florida Panthers, that he was present in Florida for the game that he missed, out there bumping chests with the guys before the game. And he even, last summer, participated and skated with some of the rookies who were coming in during the summer, taking time out of his offseason to, make himself known, show guys the ropes, what it means to be a Boston Bruin. He also added that as a group, and there's a new core that they have, and the way guys grew this year into new positions, new roles, a much better idea of what the lineup is going to look like next year. There's some holes every year that need to be filled, he added, but the foundation of the team is there, he says, and they'll be back again next year. Structure, coaching staff, it's exciting about the opportunity to accomplish some big things in the next year. That tells me, and that this reiterates my contention that it's disappointing to lose in the playoffs to the Florida Panthers, but there are several positives that can be taken from this season. It was a transition year for the Bruins. They filled some spots with some veterans who may or may not be back, but they were able to identify the core moving forward. Now, whether or not that includes Jake DeBrusk and Linus Ullmark, there's real questions about that because of perhaps needs elsewhere. For me, I'd love to have both of those guys back. I'm big fans of both, but there are needs elsewhere that we'll discuss that cap space might be better suited to fill. But you look at Jeremy Swayman, Charlie McAvoy, David Pastrnak, that's your core. Obviously, Brad Marchand remains part of that as well, but he's kind of getting up there in terms of guys to build around for the future. Those are the three. And speaking of Marchand, he added that he's up for a contract extension. As early as July 1st, he can sign a contract as this is the final year of his current deal. He said it will definitely be a conversation at some point, and we'll go from there. Obviously, he's been in Boston his whole career. He wants to continue that, deal with it when the time comes, but it doesn't sound as though there are any plans or thoughts that this could be his last year. He wants to continue playing and be captain of this team for a few years yet. David Pastrnak, who is obviously the team's best player, star player, well, arguably with Jeremy Swayman in terms of best player. He said, the team got much younger, had some experienced guys who came in who have won cups, did an unbelievable job that any player could learn from. But guys also grabbed an opportunity, came in, did a good job, and Pasta was very proud of them. You look at guys like Mason Lohrei, Justin Brazeau, John Beecher, Matt Poitras. These are players that you can, Parker Witherspoon, I should add. These are guys that are younger. We're looking to show that they belong in the NHL, and they certainly did so. The Bruins are a much younger team, and it's good experience for some of those guys to get that taste of playoff action. Good motivation going into the summer for next season. Don't sleep on the fact that the Bruins winning a round and getting into the second round, that's obviously a win. To be able to experience that as a young player, to help your team win a round in the playoffs, to get over that hump, to get even closer to the Stanley Cup and then lose, there's valuable experience there. And the Bruins young guys can certainly learn and grow from that. And Charlie McAvoy kind of reiterated that as well. He said, seeing a lot of guys step up and create roles for themselves. The veterans that they brought in were outstanding, great people and leaders. And the young guys that were able to step up and fill some other holes. McAvoy, and I agree with this wholeheartedly, they were able to beat a lot of people's expectations, put something special together, and he was just proud of everybody. For him, he said he liked his year. It was a different season for him coming into that leadership role. Something that he takes extreme amount of pride in. For me, he's the next captain of the Boston Bruins whenever Brad Marchand decides to hang it up. And he will, be a core player on this team for several years to come as one of the better defensemen in the NHL. So those are your top three skaters, probably how they felt about the season. Coming up, we're going to discuss who's coming, who's going, some needs for the Bruins, what some of these veteran guys who came in were saying, and we'll discuss that up here as the podcast continues. There's no I in team, but there is one in Indeed, and that's the hiring platform you need to build yours at work. When you're hiring, you need Indeed. It's the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed is a powerful hiring platform that can help you do it all. They streamline hiring with powerful tools that help you find matched candidates, and with Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates the moment they sponsor a job, according to U.S. data. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job at Indeed.com/lockedon. The offer is good for a limited time. Claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions do apply, but if you need to hire, you need Indeed. Check out Indeed.com/lockedon. Thank you so much once again for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine, free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, check out the Locked On Sports Today channel, 24/7 streaming all the latest news, opinions, and analysis from all over the Locked On universe. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Check out Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. All right, now let's talk about some of the veterans the Bruins brought in and how they felt about this upcoming or this past season and what to expect in the future. Kevin Shattenkirk said he was pleasantly surprised with his Bruins experience right from the start. Being in Anaheim with the Ducks over the past 3 years, it was an uphill battle just to win games and to create a winning culture. And in Boston, he was blown away when he came and saw what they had in the locker room. Great to be in a competitive atmosphere every day. Healthy competition up and down the lineup, which pushes you to be a better player. Of course, he found himself on the outside looking in at the end during the series against the Panthers. And he gave a lot of credit to the captain for the way he handled this past season. It's not easy to become a captain of a team. It's not easy to take over that mantle from a guy like Patrice Bergeron. But according to Shattenkirk, Brad handled it with ease, seemed like, and allowed guys like him to still have a voice in the locker room and feel comfortable. Shattenkirk, of course, delivered a speech prior to Game 7 against the Leafs that really helped them overcome that hurdle. All that combined for a great experience, and obviously upset with how things ended, but you look back and reflect on the whole year, it's a great experience. I've said this many times before, but if you only are a fan of sports for the winning, then you're going to be disappointed more often than not. 90, 95, heck, 99% of the experience is the journey. And if you can't appreciate that, it's going to be angering, disappointing. There's really no point in following it because you're just going to end up mad about it. Anyway, Shattenkirk said he does want to keep playing. He is a different player than he was in the past. He has a different role that he needs to accept, but he's comfortable with that. He's not expecting to get McAvoy minutes and be leaned on heavily. He's happy to play and accept his role. He would love to be with the Bruins again. He loves the group. He's excited about where they're going, but he'll be looking at somewhere that's a good fit for him. Same thing for the teams. It's some teams are looking to bring in younger guys. Some teams are looking for those veterans that can help you get over the hump. He's just going to see how it plays out, what teams are looking at, but he's hoping that it will be with the Boston Bruins. James Van Riemsdyk, he said it's interesting to look at the expectations for the team coming off the year they had in 2022-23 and all the changes. Expectations were a bit lower, so it was fun to be part of a group and keep that standard that has been set over the years. He came in and had a pretty successful season. Of course, we're going to look at all the positions and what worked, what did not work for the Bruins, but James Van Riemsdyk, especially early on, was a guy that injected some much-needed scoring, especially on the power play. In terms of where he's going in his career, he just wants a chance to win, being in a place where it's a good fit, and having a role that aligns with where he sees his game at this time. He said he loved his time with the Bruins, certainly would love it to be able to come back. He said he can't say enough good things about his experience in Boston and about the group, and he would like to stick around, as would Pat Maroon, apparently. He came in, wasn't able to get right to it because of a back injury surgery that was required early on in the season. He didn't think that the Bruins and their fans really got to see what he could fully bring to the table. Obviously, the Bruins came up short. It's unfortunate. He said you got to give it Florida a ton of credit for bringing their game. Can sit down, point the finger at the Sam Bennett incident, at the referees, but that's not what they were going to do. He said, for me, and this is incredible, I had the best experience in my life, in my career, to be part of this group and be part of this. You look at what Pat Maroon has accomplished in recent years, 2 cups with the Tampa Bay Lightning, a Stanley Cup with the St. Louis Blues, and he's coming in here. He's saying he's been with this team for a few months. They fell short of a Stanley Cup, lost in the second round, but he said he had the best experience of his life in his career to be part of this group. I don't know if that's just recency bias speaking, but he added these guys really, truly care. He can't thank them enough for welcoming him, his wife, his daughter, his son to be part of it. When you go through teams, and he's been through a bunch, you appreciate when people welcome you in and show you the love, and that's what he felt. He said he is happy to be anywhere, but he would love to remain in Boston. His role has never changed since he's been a player, and he still thinks he has some gas in the tank, especially with that recovered back. We'll see if they have the space to keep him around. I think it would be a nice value depth add, but not married to the idea of carving out a bunch of cap space to keep Pat Maroon. Although, yeah, it was I never expected to be cheering for him at any point in my hockey loving life, but hockey's a funny thing sometimes, and we'll see what happens there. When it comes to Danton Heinen, looking back to where it started on a tryout, not having a contract to begin the season, obviously a positive season for him. He was grateful to be part of the group, and he said, he played for the Bruins in the past. He came back, and he said the culture has stayed pretty much intact. It's ingrained in the Bruins no matter what, and despite the lowered expectations, he believed that they would have a competitive team. And while he hasn't had any conversations about extending his contract, he's hopeful that that will come in the future. He's open to doing it before July 1st, not really set on hitting the open market. They'll just have to see what happens. And he did have some lingering injuries, missed some games in the postseason. Didn't really want to get into it. Perhaps that could hurt his signing value, but he believes he'll make a full recovery. And I would love to have Danton Heinen back in the Bruins lineup. One area of need is down the middle, and Pavel Zacha, Charlie Coyle, Morgan Geekie were asked about that center depth, and we'll touch on that here as the podcast continues. Can't say enough about how Charlie Coyle and Morgan Geekie and Pavel Zacha lock things down at the center position for the Boston Bruins, but that doesn't mean they don't see a need for some help either. Charlie Coyle had a fantastic season, and he stepped up. He felt pushed to do more, and feels that he can even take another step up. And playing time is what you want. He was given that, and he played a great role for the Bruins this season. He's been around for a while now. You could argue he's part of that core along with Zacha. He said he's really excited about this group. There's no consolation for losing. It sucks, but you have to look ahead and see what you have and how they can continue to grow. Gives you a little spark for the summer to go out and get better and come back better for your team. He loves the core, what they have. The culture is special. They always talk about that. And there's questions about where he fits into that core and if he should be considered a number 1 or number 2 center. Pavel Zacha was a bit more open, saying that he was asked point blank whether or not the Bruins needed some help down the middle. And here's what he had to say about that. He said he thought the team did a pretty good job going into the season. No one expected the Bruins to be where they were. And he, Charlie Coyle, Morgan Geekie, locking it down in the playoffs, playing center. Everybody took that role incredibly seriously and did a great job. It's always nice to get help. However, that's something he feels like management is going to look at in the offseason. A lot of good things they can build off to be even better team next year, which is really exciting. Zacha was moved to the wing at times during the postseason. Morgan Geekie played great, but I don't know if you want him playing prime minutes as your number one center on the top line. So that's clearly an area where they are going to look at, although they do have John Beecher, Matt Poitras, Geekie as well, who can play center. Geekie said he wants to finish his game a little bit more in the offensive zone. When you get those starts with those kinds of players that he had the fortune of playing with, being able to convert on those opportunities, improving the faceoffs, that was something that was previously a strength for him and seemed to slip a little bit this year. So he'll be getting on top of that again. When it comes to John Beecher, he's looking to develop some consistency, finding a way to bring it each and every night. Extremely hard league, and you have weeks where you play 3 or 4 games. You got to be ready in every single game and every night. And so he's going to try to grow the mental and physical side of his game this summer. Guys like Matt Grzelcyk, Derek Forbort, probably Shattenkirk are guys that the Bruins are likely going to move on from. Trent Frederick is looking to become more of a leader on this team. He says he doesn't have as much of a voice with a lot of the older guys in the league, but he tries to be a good guy, show up on time, and work hard. A lot of guys that are great leaders, very vocal, and have great points throughout the whole year. Just trying to kind of feel like learning, understanding what it takes, and moving on. So all this to say, the Bruins were feeling pretty positive after losing to the Florida Panthers. If you saw the video, it looks as though they are off on a boys trip. There was a video of them on the plane, laughing it up, celebrating, having a good time, which is well-deserved. Some guys would like to be back. Some guys likely won't be back. The Bruins have some cap space to add, looking to add a scoring winger, center, perhaps some depth on defense. They have questions about Jake DeBrusk, Linus Ullmark. It's going to be a very, very fascinating offseason, as we discussed yesterday, the 3 biggest questions facing the Bruins this offseason. And that's it for today, my friends. Thank you so much for taking some time to listen. We will be back tomorrow to break down what we learned from the coach and management and their availability, which takes place here on Wednesday, and bring you all the latest on the Black and Gold. Please do subscribe if you have not already, and please do take care of yourselves and each other. We'll talk to you again here tomorrow on Locked On Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day.